What kind of magic is it can bring the Russian emperor to his knees and call it a miracle? His show began. He had each member of the royal family write down a wish. Then the young princess was asked to pick one at random, and the magician was responsible for granting it. But then the magician remembered that he couldn't read Russian. He asked the queen to translate for him. However, when the queen saw it, she told him
I'm afraid you will never be able to grant a wish, Houdini.
Was to make the Kremlin bells ring again. But the bells hadn't rung for hundreds of years. The drawstring has long since rotted, and the ladder had long since disappeared. But in the magician's book, there is no such word as impossible. Without a rope, he creates one. He picks up a silk scarf. He walks to the window and opens it. Then he tucks a white handkerchief into the scarf. A pull cord appears out of thin air. The next moment was when the miracle happened. After hundreds of years, the Kremlin bells rang out again. This brought the Russian emperor to his knees, calling it a miracle. But do miracles really exist? Of course not. It was just a magic trick. And what was the secret of this magic trick? In fact, he had only prepared a slip of paper at the beginning. When the princess handed over the slip of paper she had drawn, he switched his own note. Then he claimed he didn't know Russian, and asked the queen to translate it. The next step, the key to the show, is how to make the bells ring. The assistants set up their guns in advance. He silences the sound with a linen cloth. Then he uses his binoculars to watch the other side. When the princess pulls down the rope, he then shot the bell. And so the miracle came to pass. His name was Houdini, one of the greatest magicians of all time, better known as the god of escape. But no one is born to succeed. Houdini was just starting out. He had to perform in a variety of obscure venues. He had no money and no popularity. To make a name for himself, he challenged the NYPD. He claimed that the police cells were too big to hold him. At his provocation, the sheriff was successfully angered. The sheriff checked to make sure he didn't have any keys. He was put in the cell with the proof of the newspaper. After everyone had left, he squeezed his eyes shut. He squeezed out a key at his throat. And so Houdini became famous. He made the headlines of every newspaper, and his challenges got harder and harder. This man in bondage is taking on a whole new trick. He was tied up almost naked. He can't even walk. After a successful escape from the NYPD, Houdini is taking on the Detroit Police Department this time, to prevent him from hiding keys in his mouth. The sheriff has also gagged him. How will he escape this time? Story after story, magician Houdini's fame was growing, but he knew that no matter how big his fame became, the next show will have to be even more thrilling, and the key to taking him to the next level. The key to taking him to the next level is this chance encounter with a prop designer. His name is Tom. He's a genius when it comes to props. He designed a master key that could even be hidden in a button. What looks like a soft rope, but it's actually a sharp saw. It's like when a horse meets a man. Houdini gave Tom the space to shine, and Tom didn't let him down. He devised an escape trick from a water prison, known as one of the most dangerous tricks in the world, and it made Houdini the master of escape. Even the Kaiser asked him to perform. He fetched a marksman from the Kaiser, a bullseye shot from a distance of 10 meters or so. But then came the main event. Houdini told him to check the bullet carefully. He made him check the bullets carefully and put them in the chamber. Then he told him to aim again. But this time it was Houdini's head that was on target.
Touch the bullet with my teeth.
The scene stunned everyone. The Kaiser's permission had been granted, but in the face of an innocent man, the marksman clearly did not have the courage to pull the trigger.
Pull the trigger!
After the panic, Houdini was unharmed. The bullet was in his mouth. Can anyone really catch a bullet? The answer, of course, is no. The real answer is that there was no bullet in the gun. The answer is that there was no bullet in the gun. There is a magnet at the base of it. The bullet is sucked up as the lever is withdrawn. A simple trick. The simple trick, combined with Houdini's actorly performance. The result is a perfect performance. Houdini's various death-defying escapes. Once again, the world was amazed, but the audience was getting numb, and fewer people were watching. As time progressed, his greatest rival emerged. Compared to Houdini's theatrical performances, the newness of film was more appealing to audiences, and Houdini knew he wanted to win back the audience. He had to really face death. This is definitely the most thrilling escape trick ever. There are no tricks. It's all about your courage and years of experience. A few dozen meters above the bridge, Houdini leaps down, a precise jump into a predetermined hole in the ice. If he'd been a little off, the show would have been over. He then pulls out the key hidden under his feet. He starts to unchain his body, but he misses one thing: that the river's undercurrents. By the time he had unlocked it, he had already been swept away from his original position. The wife on the bridge waited anxiously, and the look of panic on the assistant's face. In a moment of life and death, he seemed to see his mother. By a miracle, he accomplished this unprecedented extreme escape. Houdini's magic is back in full swing. For the first time on tour again, he performs a wall-piercing trick. A seemingly flawless trick. He fooled everyone, only to be spotted by a writer. He was the author of Sherlock Holmes, the man who created Sherlock Holmes. He had no proof whatsoever. By deduction alone, he was able to dismantle Houdini's passage through a hidden door under the wall. Houdini never performed this trick again in his life. Never performed the trick again. But years later, Houdini performed a trick that he wasn't sure he could pull off. He completely conquered the man who created Sherlock Holmes. He restrained himself to a cannon. The assistant lights the fuse directly. The escape time was only 1 minute. Just like the last ice escape, this time there is no mechanism, as the cannon is fired. Houdini proves once again that magic can be done by anyone, and there was only one Houdini. From then on, he rarely performed escape tricks. Instead, he did tricks to make pigeons disappear. For example, in full view of everyone, he made an elephant weighing several tons disappear in an instant, a trick that remains a mystery to this day. And shortly afterwards, the news came that it broke his heart. His mother had died. He took his friend's advice, but called a psychic, hoping to speak to his mother on the other side. But he found out that the so-called psychics were all tricks. They weren't even magic. He hated these charlatans who made money from his tears. He declared that he would challenge all psychics. He began a career of using magic to expose charlatans, and in doing so, he cut people off from their money. After a performance, a man rushed backstage. He punched him several times in the abdomen, causing his appendix to rupture on the spot. His internal organs were infected. There was nothing the doctors could do to save him. Houdini's life stopped at the age of 52. He was born for magic. He spent his life trying to entertain the public. He deserved the word master of magic.